Hi gang, I'm back. And I just want to talk briefly about a subject that plagues many guitar players, and that's the magical world of the capo. And I've got a bunch of them here, I'll show you. But a lot of people hate them, a lot of people call them cheaters. Don't listen to any of that nonsense. It's another tool, it's very useful. I have 18th century guitar music that was written originally for two guitars, one capoed up high and then one played down low. This way they could get the range of the piano, which just at that time was sweeping Europe. So they've been around since the earliest times. I think they were originally called the Capo Distro in Italian, I think. But don't quote me on my Italian. Anyhow, I have several here. The old-fashioned kind, the old cheap folk singer kind had the rubber stretched around the neck are okay, and they're still around, but I recommend that you get, I've got several here. I have a Shub, which I prefer, and more about that later. What's his, I can't remember his first name, but Shub was the guy who used to live with the dead in their house on the hay. I had all these people moving in and out, and he came out with the thing he came up with, and good for him. This, I think, is a Steinberger Planet Waves capo, and this is the Kaiser, which is quite popular. I think that's it. Is this a Kaiser? Yeah, I think so. And it's a spring-loaded thing like this. Just a piece of advice, if you can do it, if you're going to go buy a capo, like a Shub or something, if you can do it, get a 12-string guitar capo. The reason is sometimes they'll make them different lengths. Shorter for electric guitar, wider for classical guitar. I mean, if you have a wider capo, it's easier to put on and off fast. It doesn't have to be adjusted so critically. You want the rubber to cover all the strings. And with the Shubs, I was buying classical guitar capos, which come out flat because the fingerboard is flat, and then tapping a very small curve with a hammer and a vise into them. And as long as the curve is very slight, it'll hold down all the strings all the way across the neck. The way the capo works is it just makes you able to play in different keys while still using the open strings. I'll give you a couple of demonstrations of very well-known key changes with a capo. So for example, if I play an E chord here and I move it up the neck and bar it here, it's a G. But I can also capo it on the 3rd fret and play that same E chord, and it's the same thing. Where capos are really useful is being able to get harmonies, guitar harmonies in different chords, and also to change, for example, if you like the way things sound in a D chord, if you want to move it around and get it up high in different places, you can keep the same characteristics of D and G and A. Here are a couple of very well-known examples. If I capo D on the 2nd fret, I've moved D, D sharp to E. So if I play a D chord here, I'm actually in the key of E. My beloved assistant will play an E major chord, just play an E chord. Minor, major chord, nice and loud. Major. Now play it again. There's a nice blend you get there. Here's a very well-known example of a D chord moved up to E. I won't mention the group. This is E. If I move it up another half step, it's in the key of F. If I move the capo up to the 3rd fret, and I play in the key of D again. That's the whole song, by the way. That's it. He's doing it on a 12-string guitar, though. It's a Rickenbacker 360. But here's another example. Now here, the other way to keep track of it is think of the bass note of the chord. If you're playing a D chord, that's the bass note. So here it's E, if you capo there, F, G, and A. Now if I capo all the way up on the 7th fret and play that same D chord again, it's getting very high and very bright. I'm playing an A chord. So just give me a strum with A, right? guitars are acoustic and electric. The country players and the bluegrass players really know how to do this stuff. They get these great blends. Now, a certain guy named George really liked this setting up here. Here's a couple of things you might remember. Again, out of D or D7, just moved up to the A position on the 7th fret. Or, even more famously, here's a good example oh, before I go to my final example, that's the shub capo. And also, by the way, I tend to put it like this over the neck. Many people do it like this over the neck. That's really personal preference. I sort of like them out of the way. This is a pretty fancy, lightweight Steinberger capo, which again works very well. The capos used to be more bulky, and more you're seeing ones that are very slim, and they hardly get in the way at all. This one's set with a set screw again. Remember, this cam here, you don't want it super tight. It should click into place, but you don't want to have to use a pipe wrench to get it closed. And as you go up the neck gets thicker, so you have to back off the cam a little bit so you can close it. So as long as the strings sound clear all the way across, it's fine. Now the Kaiser uses string tension, which this one isn't bad. I've found them hard to use just because they take a lot of strength to them, and they tend to pull the strings sideways. But once again, yeah, once they're in place, they're pretty bulletproof. And actually, this one works better than. And these don't have an adjustment going up the neck. They're fine just as they are. You just have to open them up. And don't put them on the fret. Put them behind the fret, just like when you're fingering the strings. So, for example, if I take a regular C chord and I go up to D and then to E, I would capo on the 4th fret. And so what I'll do, I'll use the Steinberger for variety's sake. And okay, so now if I play a C chord, I'm in the key of E, and it sounds very nice with a guitar playing in a regular key of E. Go right ahead. About it for capos. There are more refinements to it, but that's pretty much it. The thing to do is get one and fool around with it, and don't be afraid to use them. And if people give you a sidelong glance and tell them you're cheating, you just say, "Of course I am." All right, see you later.